Hello, I'm Tim and welcome to Game Podcast. In this video I'm going to be taking the 5 Terminators and the Terminator Captain from the Leviathan box and turning them into Dark Angels Deathwing. I also threw in the Blade Guard veterans that came with my Lion El Jonson model, the Deathwing Rises. In my last video I finished my Magicians and Machines Armies on Parade entry with the Ballistus Dreadnought. For those who haven't seen that video yet, a link should be popping up on the screen now, and I'll also add it into the description. All in all, this model turned out really well, and I'm continuing the same Fallen or Risen Dark Angels theme in this video, all inspired from the 40k novel The Lion, Son of the Forest. My twist being that these Risen have all been re-equipped and upgraded to Primaris Rule of Cool and all that. I'll try to put some more 30k touches in as I go, but in the case of these Terminators, I love the new models, so these guys stay as is. For anyone who's new to the hobby or not familiar with the Dark Angels lore, the Deathwing is the traditional name for the Legion's first company veteran Astartes, and unlike some of the other legions, the Dark Angels generally equip all their first company with Terminator power armor. Deathwing can easily be identified by their red broken-winged sword insignia and their iconic, and painful to paint, bone white power armor. Originally these Terminators were black, matching the Legion's original colouring during the Great Crusade. However, long ago a band of Deathwing returned to their homeworld to find it enslaved by gene stealers. Being few in number, they knew this fight would likely claim their lives, thus they painted their armour white, the symbolic colour of death in their culture, and took the fight to the enemy. Though many Terminators were slain, the squad were ultimately victorious, and to this day, in reverence to that brave Terminator squad, all members of the Deathwing continue the tradition of painting their armour in the bone white colour of death. Trying to save time, I base coated and Zenithal primed all of the models in the Leviathan box at pretty much the same time. I first used Chaos Black and then White Scar for the Zenithal highlight. I figured this would save me time and effort. It did not. White Scar seems to leave a very slightly textured finish. It's also a very strong white, which is fine for basing over with dark contrast paints, but for lighter shades such as the bone armour here, it just creates a really horrible colour gradient that doesn't look at all like any of the concept art or models painted by Games Workshop's Heavy Metal team. If only I'd used the Wraithbone spray for my Zenithal, or even just undercoated it altogether. Alas, I was a fool, and thus I had to manually go around and rebase all the models the old-fashioned way.
Many unbearable hours later.
Anyway, once I'd sorted this mess out, I was ready to start painting the joints in with Black Templar contrast before moving on to the other base coats. I used Fleshtearers red for the weapon housings as per the standard for Deathwing, Leadbeltcher for any metallics, Warpstone glow for the green tunics and cape of the Blade Guards and Captain, and any gold details were based in Retributor gold. The Imperial chest icon I coloured green using the Dark Angels green contrast paint. These are all pretty basic steps, and in each case I just tried to be as neat as possible, using a well-pointed medium-sized brush. In my case, a mixture of Army Painter Regiment brush and Artist Opus size 0 brush, adjusting as needed and neatening up at the end of each run. To guide me, I used the basic painting tutorial from Games Workshop on painting Deathwing Terminators. It's a basic approach, but it covers all of the basics to get you a good looking miniature. You can then, as I did, add your own flair and finish to the model. I also opted to paint the model's head separately for ease of access. Time to tackle that bone armour. Now I'll be using the same Skeletal Horde contrast paint and contrast medium mix from the video, so 1 drop of contrast medium for each drop of Skeletal Horde. As I've got 9 miniatures to paint, I mixed up enough using a spare paint pot. Mix done, I slapped on the contrast paint and hoped for the best. The end results were pretty good, but I did learn a valuable lesson here. When applying contrast paint, you really need to think about where you finish your brush stroke. As for strong gradient colours like this, paint will generally pool where you finish your stroke, thus creating the darker areas at that point. This means it's important to think about ending your stroke at a point where you want there to be a dark colour, usually in the shadows. I didn't do this very well, which resulted in a fair amount of rework and touch-ups.
Heresy grows from idleness.
In short, I took a single miniature and experimented with glazing darker shadows and lighter highlights. The results were pretty mixed and I started to get frustrated. Time for a break. During my break, I went away and watched a couple of videos on blending methods, and the one that really helped me was this one by Artis Opus. After a bit more experimentation, I found that stippling the highlights and the shadows and then blending them together with a couple of very light thin glazes at the end worked best. Also, to minimise texture when stippling, you need to make sure you thin the paint down properly. Armed with this new knowledge, I started a production line and got to work fixing up my coating. To detail these boys, I first created a stain for all the green material as per the Warhammer video guide on painting the lion. Again, that should be popping up on the screen now, and I'll have a link to it in the description. This is basically 1 part Dark Angels green and 4 parts contrast medium. I applied this over all the material sections that I previously based in Warpstone green, allowing it to pool a little bit in the recesses to add some depth. I then went back in with the Warpstone green to build up the highlights. After that, I used a 1-to-1 mix of Warpstone and Corax white to build up an even brighter highlight before adding a final edge highlight and line highlight in pure Corax white. I really tried to stick to just 3 shades, but particularly for the Captain's Cape, it needed a few more colours to create a smooth gradient from the Warpstone up to the white. Using a wet palette and building your colour gradients on the palette first really helped with this process. At the end, I also added a couple of green glazes to help blend it using the Dark Angels shade, but watered down. I then went round and added some edge highlighting to all the armour with Wraithbone, Stormhost silver, highlights to the silver weapons, and Shining gold for the gold metalwork, and some Evil Sun's Scarlet for the weapon casings. I also took a fine detail brush and added Skeletal hard to all the recesses and shadows to give extra gradient and contrast. I did the same with Guilliman's flesh, applying it to all the gold areas in shadow. The main components of the project done, I had a set of really good looking, well painted miniatures. Time to add some weathering. This is a step I get a bit nervous about. It's like adding OLS on top of your nicely perfected paint job. Get it wrong and you might have to redo the entire part of the model, and there's no guarantee that it will be as good as it was before. But he who dares wins, and the Emperor demands bravery. For me, less is definitely more when it comes to weathering, and I want my troops to look fairly freshly deployed rather than battered and bloodied, so I elected to localise weathering to the Power Fists and the Pauldrons. Unfortunately, I didn't really record much of this as I forgot to set my camera up, but if you want a quick how-to on this or any other aspect of the project, just let me know in the comments. To start, I added a few scratches using Wraithbone, as well as some light stippling with a small piece of foam. I then repeated this process with some Rynox hide and then some Leadbeltcher silver. I then went in and added some chips with Rynox hide and added an under highlight to this with Wraithbone as per this guide by Games Workshop. Finally, I was left with the job of basing all the minis in the same forest style as my Dreadnought. So I whipped out the Vallejo European mud and went to town, making sure to add some rocks, fallen branches, and of course, a few skulls. I wasn't a fan of the base that came with the Captain either, so I needed to come up with something different. Whew. Those 9 models took a very long time. I reckon the best part of 30 hours, but I'm really happy with the final finish. I think I could have been a bit lighter on some of the edge highlighting, and I made plenty of mistakes. So I'm sure my next squad of Deathwing will be a whole lot faster. I think now it's fair to say I have no excuse not to finish the Lion. So watch out, Lion El Jonson, I'm coming for you next. Though I said that about Horus already, and that was months ago, and those Stoneguard veterans are pretty cool, and the new Mechanicus models and Codex is out soon, and I have those Nids too, and the Flamers, and the Khorne Terminator, and the Lord of the Rings Uruk-hai.